The crack of a gunshot echoed through Val Verde, Texas, freezing Helena Evans in her tracks as dust billowed across the main street. It wasn't the first time she'd heard gunfire in this frontier town, nor would it be the last, but something about today felt different, as if fate itself had loaded the chamber. The year was 1879, and Helena had just stepped off the stagecoach with nothing but 2 weathered trunks and the weight of her past trailing behind her like a shadow. Helena smoothed her navy blue traveling dress and adjusted her modest hat, scanning the dusty thoroughfare of Val Verde with cautious hazel eyes. At 28, she carried herself with the quiet dignity of someone who had lived more life than her years suggested. Her auburn hair was neatly pinned beneath her hat, though a few rebellious strands framed her face, softening her otherwise guarded expression. "Madam, you might want to seek shelter," called the stagecoach driver as he tossed down her second trunk. "Looks like the Simmons boys are at it again." "Thank you for your concern," Helena replied, her voice steady despite the commotion. "But I've seen my share of trouble." The driver tipped his hat before climbing back onto his seat. As the stagecoach pulled away, Helena gathered her belongings and made her way toward the modest building with a freshly painted sign that read, "Evans Millinery." Her cousin Martha had left her the shop after passing from consumption last winter, a final kindness from the only family member who hadn't turned their back on Helena after her scandals. Another shot rang out, followed by shouting. Helena quickened her pace, dragging her trunks across the wooden sidewalk when a man came barreling around the corner, nearly knocking her down. "Pardon me, madam," he exclaimed, steadying her with strong hands before realizing her trunks were tipping. In one fluid motion, he caught them before they could spill open, revealing her carefully packed life to the dusty street. "Thank you," Helena managed, finding herself looking up into the most startlingly blue eyes she'd ever seen. They belonged to a tall man with sun-bronzed skin and sandy blonde hair that curled slightly at his collar. His clothing marked him as a rancher, practical, well-worn, but of good quality. "Name's Adam Sutton," he said, tipping his Stetson. "Looks like you could use a hand with these." Without waiting for her response, he hoisted both trunks easily. "I'm Helena Evans. I've just arrived to take over my cousin Martha's shop." She unlocked the door to the millinery, and Adam followed her inside, setting the trunks down in the small back room that would serve as her living quarters. "Martha's cousin from back east." Adam's expression shifted to one of recognition. "She spoke of you often, said you were talented with a needle and thread." Helena felt a pang of grief. "Yes, we wrote regularly. I'm grateful she thought to leave me the shop." She glanced around the dusty space. "It needs some care, but it's a fresh start." Adam nodded, his eyes taking in the room and then returning to her face with an intensity that made Helena look away. "Val Verde could use a skilled milliner. The ladies have been traveling to San Antonio for their bonnets since Martha fell ill." "And what do you do in Val Verde, Mr. Sutton?" Helena asked, removing her gloves one finger at a time. "I run the Double S Ranch about 5 miles outside of town. Cattle mainly, but I've been experimenting with horses too." He shifted his weight, seeming suddenly aware they were alone in her quarters. "Well, I should let you get settled. Town's been a bit rowdy lately with the cattle drives coming through, but it's generally peaceful." As if to contradict his words, raised voices erupted from the saloon across the street. Adam smiled apologetically. "Generally peaceful," he repeated with a wry grin that transformed his weathered face into something unexpectedly boyish. "I appreciate your help, Mr. Sutton." "Adam," he corrected. "And if you need anything, supplies, repairs, someone to show you around my ranch hands, and I come into town most Saturdays." After he left, Helena sat on one of her trunks, suddenly overwhelmed by the silence and the enormity of what she'd done. Val Verde was meant to be her sanctuary, far from the whispers and judgment that had followed her in Boston. Here, she could be simply Helena Evans, milliner, not the woman who'd been widowed twice before 30, whose marriages had been fodder for gossip. The next morning, Helena rose early, determined to make the shop presentable as quickly as possible. Her funds were limited, and she needed to start earning income. She swept, dusted, and arranged the meager inventory left from Martha's time, then hung a grand reopening sign in the window, promising new designs within the week. By midday, curiosity had brought several women into the shop. Most came under the pretense of welcoming her to town, but Helena recognized the familiar gleam of speculation in their eyes. Small towns had long memories and loose tongues she would need to tread carefully. "You must be Miss Evans," said an elegant woman in her 40s, entering the shop with two younger ladies in tow. "I'm Beatrice Wilson, head of the Ladies' Aid Society. These are my daughters, Catherine and Jane. Mrs. Wilson, how lovely to meet you, and please call me Helena." She offered her most practiced smile, the one that revealed nothing while appearing open and friendly. "We were so sorry about your cousin. Martha was a dear friend." Beatrice's eyes swept the shop appraisingly. "You've certainly brought some life back to the place already. Thank you. I hope to have new inventory soon. I brought designs from Boston that I think will suit Val Verde beautifully." "Boston," Catherine, the elder daughter, perked up. "How exciting. Is that where you're from originally?" Helena nodded. "Yes, though I've lived briefly in New York and Philadelphia as well." "My goodness, you're well-traveled for a young woman," Beatrice remarked, her tone hovering between impressed and suspicious. "Life has taken me many places," Helena replied noncommittally. She turned the conversation to hats and the upcoming church social, steering safely away from her personal history. After the Wilsons left, promising to return when the new stock arrived, Helena exhaled slowly. She'd survived the first wave of scrutiny, but knew it was only the beginning. Eventually, someone would ask directly about her past, or worse, rumors from Boston would find their way to Val Verde. The bell above the door jingled again, and Helena turned with her shopkeeper's smile in place, only to find Adam Sutton filling the doorway, his hat in his hands. "Mr. Sutton, Adam, what a surprise. I was passing by and thought you might need some help getting settled." His eyes took in the transformed shop. "Though it seems you've managed just fine on your own." "I've had practice making spaces my own," she said, then immediately regretted the words that hinted at her nomadic past. If Adam noticed, he didn't comment. Instead, he held out a small package. "Martha ordered these buttons before she passed. They arrived at the general store last week, and Mr. Henderson asked if I'd deliver them since I was headed this way." Helena accepted the package, her fingers brushing his. "That's very kind. I was just about to close for lunch, actually. Have you tried Lottie's Cafe yet? Best apple pie west of the Mississippi." The invitation was casual, friendly even, but Helena hesitated. In a town this size, being seen dining with a bachelor would start tongues wagging immediately. "I brought sandwiches," she said finally. "But I would welcome the company if you'd care to join me. I have so many questions about Val Verde." Adam smiled, and Helena felt an unexpected flutter in her chest. "I'd be honored," he said. Over simple sandwiches in the back room of the shop, Helena learned that Adam had come to Texas after the war, using his savings to buy a small plot of land that he'd gradually expanded into one of the most respected ranches in the county. He was 34, had never married, and served as an unofficial deputy when Sheriff Miller needed extra hands. "And you, Helena, what brought you all the way from Boston to our little corner of Texas?" His question was gentle but direct. She chose her words carefully. "After my cousin's letter about her illness, I realized there was nothing keeping me in Boston. When she passed and left me the shop, it seemed like Providence. It wasn't a lie, merely a selective truth. No family back east. None that would miss me," she said, her tone making it clear that topic was closed. Adam nodded, respecting her boundary. "Well, Val Verde has a way of becoming home to those who need one. It did for me." Their conversation shifted to lighter topics: the upcoming Harvest Festival, the best places to source materials for her hats, the characters who made up the town's population. By the time Adam left, promising to stop by again, Helena felt more at ease than she had in years. Over the next few weeks, Helena established a routine. Mornings were spent creating new designs and afternoons tending to customers. Word spread quickly about the quality of her work, and orders began to flow in steadily. She made a point of attending Sunday services at the small white church in the center of town, knowing that, in a place like Val Verde, religious participation was as much social necessity as spiritual practice. Adam became a regular visitor, sometimes bringing small gifts, fresh eggs from his henhouse, wildflowers he'd spotted on his ride into town, a length of ribbon he'd picked up in San Antonio. Each visit left Helena both pleased and unsettled. She enjoyed his company more than she cared to admit, but experience had taught her the danger of allowing herself to care too deeply. "You've caught Adam Sutton's eye," remarked Sarah Henderson, the general store owner's wife, as Helena selected thread one afternoon. "Half the unmarried women in the county have set their caps for him over the years." "We're just friends," Helena said firmly. "Mr. Sutton has been kind in helping me get established here." Sarah raised an eyebrow. "Adam doesn't bring wildflowers to all the new folks in town, dear." Helena changed the subject, but Sarah's words stayed with her. That evening, when Adam stopped by just before closing with a book of poetry he thought she might enjoy, Helena made a decision. "Would you care to stay for dinner?" she asked impulsively. "It's nothing fancy, but I made too much stew." Adam's smile warmed his eyes. "I'd like that very much." Over their simple meal, Helena found herself laughing more freely than she had in years. Adam told stories of cattle drives gone wrong and his first disastrous attempts at breaking horses, painting vivid pictures of his life on the ranch. "You should see it," he said finally. "The double S, especially now with the wildflowers covering the hills." "I'd like that," Helena admitted. "Sunday after church, I could bring the buggy." His offer hung in the air between them, more significant than a simple invitation. Helena hesitated only briefly. Sunday would be perfect. Sunday dawned clear and warm, a perfect spring day. Helena wore her best dress to church, a deep green that complemented her auburn hair, with a matching bonnet of her own design. She was conscious of the glances and whispers as Adam sat beside her in the pew, but found she cared less than she'd expected. After the service, Adam helped her into his buggy, and they set off for the Double S Ranch. As they left town behind, Helena felt a weight lifting from her shoulders. The open country with its rolling hills and vast sky spoke of freedom, of possibilities. "It's beautiful," she said as the buggy crested a hill, revealing the ranch spread out below a sturdy main house. Several outbuildings, corrals filled with horses, and beyond them, grazing cattle dotting the green pastures. "It's home," Adam replied simply. "Took years to build it to this point. Started with just that cabin there." He pointed to a small structure near a cluster of oak trees. "Lived there alone for 2 years before I could afford to build the main house." He gave her a tour of the property, proudly showing off the improvements he'd made, introducing her to the ranch hands who tipped their hats respectfully, and finally ending at the main house, a spacious 2-story structure with a wide porch wrapping around 3 sides. "This is lovely," Helena said as they settled on the porch with glasses of lemonade. The house was comfortable but plainly furnished, clearly a bachelor's domain. "It needs a woman's touch," Adam admitted, gazing at her with an intensity that made her heart race. "Has for some time." Helena looked away, focusing on the distant hills. "You've built something wonderful here, Adam." "It was always meant for a family," he said quietly. "That was the dream, the ranch, a wife, children. But the years pass quickly when you're building something." His words hung in the air between them, laden with meaning. Helena felt a tightness in her chest, a familiar panic rising. "Adam, you don't have to say anything," he interrupted gently. "I know we haven't known each other long. I just wanted you to see this place, to understand what matters to me." The ride back to town was quieter but not uncomfortably so. At her door, Adam helped her down from the buggy, his hands lingering at her waist a moment longer than necessary. "Thank you for today," Helena said. "Your ranch is magnificent. Will you come again?" The question was simple, but his eyes asked much more. "Yes," she answered, surprising herself with her certainty. "I'd like that very much." Over the next 2 months, Helena's business thrived as summer approached. Her designs, which blended Eastern sophistication with practical Western sensibilities, became sought after not just in Val Verde but in neighboring towns as well. She hired young Mary Collins as an assistant, teaching the girl the basics of millinery while managing the increasing workload. Her friendship with Adam deepened as well. They established a comfortable routine dinner at her place on Wednesday evenings, Sunday afternoons at the ranch after church. They attended town socials together, and though Helena was careful to maintain propriety, it was generally accepted throughout Val Verde that they were courting. Helena found herself happier than she'd been in years, perhaps ever. Yet as her feelings for Adam grew, so did her anxiety. She had kept her past carefully guarded, deflecting personal questions and changing the subject whenever conversation veered toward her life before Val Verde. But secrets had a way of surfacing, especially in small towns. The reckoning came on a warm June evening. Helena was closing the shop when Beatrice Wilson swept in with a letter clutched in her hand and triumph in her eyes. "My sister in Boston writes the most interesting news," she announced without preamble. Imagine my surprise when she mentioned knowing an Helena Evans, or should I say Helena Thornton Gardner. Helena felt the blood drain from her face. "Mrs. Wilson, I don't know what, twice widowed before 30. My, what rotten luck." Beatrice's smile was all teeth. "Or perhaps not luck at all. Your first husband's family certainly had their suspicions." "Those were vicious rumors with no foundation," Helena said, her voice steadier than she felt. "I loved Thomas. His death nearly destroyed me. And then poor Mr. Gardner so soon after. How convenient that both men left you financially secure." Helena's hands clenched into fists. "Get out of my shop, Mrs. Wilson. Does Adam know? About your husbands? About the whispers that followed you from Boston to Philadelphia and now here?" Beatrice tilted her head in mock concern. "He deserves to know what kind of woman he's courting, don't you think?" After Beatrice left, Helena sank into a chair, trembling. It had been naive to think she could outrun her past. The story would be all over town by morning how Helena had married Thomas Thornton, son of a wealthy merchant, only to be widowed when he fell from his horse 6 months later. How his family had accused her of marrying him for his money and even implied darker motives. How she'd fled to Philadelphia, where she eventually married James Gardner, a kind widower 20 years her senior who died of heart failure less than 2 years into their marriage. No one had ever proven anything against her. There was nothing to prove, but rumors didn't require evidence. 2 dead husbands and their money had been enough to taint her reputation irrevocably. Helena packed quickly, mechanically. She could be on the morning stage to San Antonio, and from there to anywhere. The shop was doing well, she could sell it, start over again somewhere else. Somewhere Adam wouldn't find her, wouldn't look at her with suspicion or worse, pity. A knock at the back door startled her from her frantic packing. Adam stood there, his expression grave. "Helena, may I come in?" Her heart sank. "Beatrice works quickly," she said bitterly, stepping back to allow him inside. "I suppose the whole town knows by now." Adam glanced at the open trunk on her bed. "You're leaving, wouldn't you, in my position?" She resumed, folding a shirtwaist, avoiding his eyes. "It's only a matter of time before the rumors start. Black widow, fortune hunter, perhaps even murderess. Helena." Adam's voice was gentle as he took the garment from her hands. "Look at me." Reluctantly, she met his gaze, expecting accusation or disgust. Instead, she found only concern. "Beatrice came to the saloon where I was having a drink with Sheriff Miller. She could barely contain her glee at delivering the news." He shook his head. "I left before she finished. I needed to hear it from you." Helena sank onto the edge of the bed. "What do you want to know?" "Everything." "The truth." So she told him. About meeting Thomas Thornton at a society ball, their whirlwind courtship, and the genuine love she'd felt for the charming, impetuous young man. How his family had disapproved of her modest background, accusing her of social climbing. how devastated she'd been when Thomas was thrown from his horse and died instantly. His mother couldn't accept it was an accident, Helena explained. She needed someone to blame, and I was the obvious choice. The rumors started small that I'd encouraged him to take a dangerous jump, that I'd deliberately spooked his horse. Then they grew darker. But there was no evidence, Adam said. None. It was a tragic accident witnessed by several people, but once whispers start. She sighed. I left Boston when I couldn't bear the stairs any longer. In Philadelphia, I met James. James Gardner had been kind, steady, a successful merchant with grown children. He'd offered Helena respectability and affection, if not passionate love. He knew about Thomas, about the rumors. He didn't care. Helena's voice softened with the memory. We had a good marriage, quiet, companionable. When his heart failed, it was unexpected but not shocking. He'd had episodes before. But of course, once word got back to Boston. The rumors followed you, Adam finished. Helena nodded. 2 dead husbands. Too much coincidence for society to ignore. She gestured to her trunk. So you see why I have to leave. It's only a matter of time before Val Verde turns against me too. Adam was quiet for a long moment. Then, to her surprise, he began unpacking her trunk, calmly returning items to her wardrobe. What are you doing, preventing you from making a mistake? He turned to face her. Helena, I don't give a damn about Beatrice Wilson's gossip or what anyone in Boston thinks. You should, she insisted. Your reputation in this town is strong enough to withstand a few rumors. Besides, he added with a half-smile, I've never much cared what others think of me. It's what I think of myself that matters. And what do you think about courting a woman who's been married twice, who's followed by whispers wherever she goes? Adam took her hands in his. I think life is cruel and unpredictable. I think you've endured more than your share of tragedy and malice. And I know that I've fallen in love with a strong, talented, kind woman who deserves happiness. Tears sprang to Helena's eyes. Adam, you can't. I can, and I do. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. This isn't how I planned to do this. I had it all arranged: dinner at the ranch, sunset over the hills. He opened the box to reveal a simple but beautiful diamond ring. But maybe this is better. No pretense, no hiding from hard truths. Helena stared at the ring, her heart pounding. Adam, you should know everything before I know enough, he interrupted gently. I know who you are here and now. The past matters only in how it's shaped you into the woman I love. People will talk. They'll try to turn you against me. Let them try. His blue eyes held hers steadily. Helena Evans, will you marry me? Will you make a life with me at the Double S, face whatever comes together? Helena looked at this man, this good, strong, unshakable man who saw her clearly and loved her anyway, and felt the walls around her heart begin to crumble. You should be afraid, she whispered. The only thing that scares me is the thought of you leaving on that stage tomorrow. He smiled, a tender quirk of his lips. Besides, third time's when it finally works. That's what my father always said. A startled laugh escaped her. Your father sounds like a wise man. He was. Adam's thumb traced circles on her palm. So, will you make me the happiest man in Texas? Helena took a deep breath and made her choice. Yes, she said. Yes, I will marry you, Adam Sutton. The news of their engagement spread through Val Verde faster than a prairie fire. As expected, reactions were mixed. Adam's friends offered sincere congratulations, while others watched with wary curiosity. Beatrice Wilson and her circle were openly scandalized, predicting Adam would meet the same fate as Helena's previous husbands. But Adam remained steadfast. He escorted Helena proudly to church each Sunday, glaring down anyone who dared whisper in their presence. He brought her to the Cattlemen's Association dinner as his fiancée, introducing her to the most influential ranchers in the county with obvious pride. You don't have to fight all my battles, Helena told him one evening as they sat on the porch of her shop. I've weathered worse storms than Beatrice Wilson. I know you have, he replied, squeezing her hand, but you don't have to weather them alone anymore. As summer progressed, the gossip gradually subsided as newer scandals captured the town's attention. Eleanor's business continued to thrive. Even Beatrice's daughters secretly ordered hats from her, though they claimed they were for friends in San Antonio. Helena and Adam set their wedding date for October, when the fall cattle drive would be complete and the ranch work less demanding. Helena sold the millinery shop to Mary Collins, who had proven herself a quick study and had saved enough for a down payment. She would continue creating hats at the ranch, taking special commissions rather than running a full-time shop. "Are you sure you won't miss town life?" Adam asked as they finalized the sale. "The ranch is beautiful, but it can be isolating." "After the past few years, isolation sounds like paradise," Helena assured him. "Besides, we're only a short ride from town, and I'll have plenty of visitors once word gets out that I'm still accepting custom orders." 2 weeks before the wedding, disaster struck. A sudden autumn storm washed out bridges and flooded low-lying areas throughout the county. The Double S was spared major damage, but many smaller ranches weren't so fortunate. Adam organized relief efforts, sending his men with supplies and lending his strength to rebuild what had been destroyed. Helena found herself unexpectedly in charge of the ranch while Adam was away helping neighbors. She rose to the challenge, working alongside the remaining hands, making decisions about cattle placement and feed distribution, and keeping the household running smoothly. When Adam returned after 5 exhausting days, he found hot food waiting, clean clothes laid out, and the ranch operations proceeding as if he'd never left. "You're a miracle," he said, pulling her into his arms despite his mud-caked clothes. "I half expected to find chaos. I may be a city girl originally, but I'm a quick study." She pushed him gently toward the washroom. "Now go get cleaned up before you fall asleep standing up." Later, as they sat by the fire with coffee, Adam studied her thoughtfully. "You know, when I imagined bringing a wife to the Double S, I never expected to find someone who could run it as well as I can." Helena smiled. "Better, perhaps. I caught Johnson trying to cheat on the feed counts. You fired him." "No, I explained very clearly that while I understood times were hard, theft wouldn't be tolerated. Then I advanced him half his next month's wages so he could send money to his sister in Austin." She sipped her coffee. "He's been working twice as hard ever since." Adam shook his head in admiration. "You're something else, Helena Evans." "Almost Helena Sutton," she reminded him. The wedding took place on a perfect October day, with golden sunlight bathing the hills surrounding the Double S. They married on the ranch, in the meadow where wildflowers still dotted the grass despite the advancing season. Sheriff Miller, who was also the local justice of the peace, performed the ceremony while what seemed like half the county looked on. Helena wore a gown of ivory silk that she designed herself, with a crown of autumn flowers in her hair instead of a veil. Adam, cleaned up and looking handsome in a new suit, couldn't take his eyes off her as she walked toward him on the arm of his foreman, who had offered to give her away. "Dearly beloved," Sheriff Miller began, his voice carrying across the assembled crowd. "We are gathered here today to join Adam Sutton and Helena Evans in holy matrimony." As Helena repeated her vows, she felt a sense of rightness, of homecoming. This was different from her previous marriages, not because she had loved Thomas or James any less, but because she herself was different, stronger, wiser, more certain of who she was and what she wanted. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the sheriff declared. "Adam, you may kiss your bride." Adam's kiss was tender but thorough, eliciting cheers and a few good-natured whistles from the crowd. When they turned to face their guests as Mr. and Mrs. Sutton, Helena was surprised to see even Beatrice Wilson dabbing at her eyes, her earlier animosity apparently set aside for the occasion. The celebration continued well into the evening, with tables set up in the ranch yard, lanterns strung from trees, and a local fiddle band providing music for dancing. As twilight descended, Adam led Helena away from the revelry toward their cabin, the original small structure he'd built when first claiming the land, now refurbished as a private retreat. "I thought we might want some privacy tonight," he explained as they approached the candlelit cabin. The main house will still be full of guests until tomorrow. Inside, the cabin had been transformed with fresh linens, flowers, and a bottle of champagne chilling in a bucket of ice. A fire crackled in the small hearth, warding off the autumn chill. "It's perfect," Helena said, touched by his thoughtfulness. "Our own little world." Adam's eyes darkened as he drew her into his arms. "The first night of many," he murmured before claiming her lips again. Later, as they lay tangled in the sheets, Helena's head resting on Adam's chest, she felt a profound peace settle over her. Outside, they could still hear distant strains of music and laughter from their wedding celebration. But in here, it was just the two of them, beginning their life together. "Happy, Mrs. Sutton?" Adam asked, his fingers tracing lazy patterns on her bare shoulder. "Remarkably so, Mr. Sutton." She propped herself up to look at him. "I never expected to find this again, to trust enough to try. I'm glad you did." He tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "Some things are worth the risk. Third time's when it finally works," she quoted with a smile. "In this case, absolutely." He pulled her down for another kiss, and Helena surrendered to the joy of the moment, to the promise of their future together. Life at the Double S quickly established its own rhythm. Helena adapted to ranch life with surprising ease, finding satisfaction in the directness of the work and the beauty of their surroundings. She continued creating hats in a sunny corner room of the main house that Adam had converted into a workshop for her, accepting commissions from as far away as San Antonio. Their first winter as a married couple brought challenges. December arrived with an unusually severe blizzard that trapped them in the house for days and threatened the cattle herds. Adam and his men worked tirelessly to protect the animals, often returning to the house with ice in their beards and exhaustion etched on their faces. Helena kept the home fires burning literally and figuratively. She ensured hot meals were always ready, dry clothes waiting, and the house warm and welcoming. She learned to cook for hungry ranch hands, to treat minor injuries, and to manage household supplies through weeks of isolation. When the spring thaw finally came, the Double S had weathered the winter better than most ranches in the area. They'd lost some cattle, but nothing compared to the devastation others faced. Adam credited Helena's organizational skills and steady presence. "You kept us all going," he told her as they rode together across newly green pastures to assess the spring calving. "I've never seen the men work so hard, and I think it's because they knew what was waiting back at the house." Helena smiled, adjusting her hat against the bright April sunshine. "A hot meal and dry socks work wonders for morale. It's more than that." Adam reached across to squeeze her hand. "You've made the ranch a home. Before, it was just a place where we worked and slept. Now it's somewhere the men want to return to." As spring bloomed into summer, Helena began to suspect a new blessing was on its way. Her monthly courses had stopped, and certain smells that had never bothered her before now turned her stomach. By June, she was certain enough to share the news with Adam. They were sitting on the porch after supper, watching the sunset paint the hills in shades of gold and pink. Helena had been trying to find the right moment all day, but somehow the words stuck in her throat. What if something went wrong? What if this happiness was too perfect to last? "You're quiet tonight," Adam observed, his hand covering hers on the armrest between their rocking chairs. "Headache?" "No, just thinking." She took a deep breath. "Adam, I have something to tell you." He turned to face her, concern flickering in his eyes. "Is everything all right?" "Everything is wonderful," she assured him. "At least, I hope you'll think so." She guided his hand to rest on her still flat stomach. "We're going to have a baby, probably around Christmas from what I can figure." Adam's expression transformed from concern to wonder to pure joy in the space of a heartbeat. "A baby," he whispered. "You're sure?" Helena nodded, tears threatening. "As sure as I can be without a doctor's confirmation. All the signs are there." Adam dropped to his knees before her chair, both hands now cradling her abdomen as if holding the most precious treasure. "A baby," he repeated, awe in his voice. "Our baby." "Are you happy?" she asked, needing to hear the words though his face told her everything. Happy doesn't begin to cover it. He looked up at her, his own eyes suspiciously bright. Helena, you've already given me more joy than I ever thought possible, and now this. He pressed a gentle kiss to her stomach, then rose to capture her lips with his. The baby grew steadily through the summer and fall, as did Helena's confidence in this new life she'd built. When they visited Val Verde, she held her head high, her growing belly a visible symbol of their thriving marriage. Even Beatrice Wilson had grudgingly come around, especially after Helena generously offered to create a special hat for her daughter Catherine's wedding despite their previous friction. "You're a better woman than I would be in your position," Adam remarked after Beatrice left the ranch with profuse thanks for Helena's kindness. "No," Helena corrected him with a smile. "Just an older and wiser one. Bitterness is too heavy a load to carry, especially now." She rubbed her swollen belly. "Besides, I've won, haven't I? I have everything Beatrice thought I didn't deserve: a loving husband, a beautiful home, a child on the way. What better revenge than happiness?" December brought another harsh winter, though not as severe as the previous year. Helena's time drew near, and Adam insisted on bringing in a midwife to stay at the ranch for the final weeks of her pregnancy. Sarah Henderson's sister Martha was known throughout the county for her skills in delivering babies, and she moved into the guest room in early December, her calming presence a relief to both expectant parents. Labor began on Christmas Eve, as a gentle snow fell outside. Helena had been helping prepare the Christmas feast when the first pain struck, strong enough to make her gasp and clutch the kitchen table. "It's time," Martha said, immediately taking charge. "Adam, get the bedroom ready. Mary, boil water. John, ride for the doctor just in case." The next 18 hours were a blur of pain, exhaustion, and determination for Helena. Adam refused to leave her side, ignoring Martha's insistence that men traditionally waited elsewhere. He wiped Helena's brow, held her hands through contractions, and murmured encouragement when she felt she couldn't continue. "You're the strongest woman I've ever known," he told her as dawn broke on Christmas morning. "You can do this. We're almost there." Shortly after noon, with a final heroic effort, Helena brought their son into the world, a robust boy with a head of dark hair and lungs powerful enough to announce his arrival to the entire ranch. "He's perfect," Adam whispered, tears streaming unashamedly down his face as Martha placed the swaddled infant in Helena's arms. "Helena, look what we made." "Hello, little one," Helena crooned, her exhaustion momentarily forgotten as she counted tiny fingers and toes. "Welcome to the world, Thomas James Sutton." Adam's eyes softened at her choice of names. "After your first 2 husbands, after 2 good men who would be happy to know I found my way here to you." She touched the baby's cheek wonderingly. "Is that all right?" "It's more than all right." Adam sat carefully on the edge of the bed, one arm around Helena and the other hand gently cradling his son's head. "It honors your past while celebrating our future." News of Thomas James Sutton's birth spread quickly, bringing a stream of visitors bearing gifts and good wishes. The Double S became a hub of community life in a way it hadn't been before, with neighboring ranchers and townspeople alike finding reasons to stop by and admire the newest Sutton. Helena recovered quickly from the birth, resuming many of her duties by February, though now with Thomas strapped to her chest or sleeping nearby. Adam proved to be a devoted father, often carrying the baby with him around the ranch in a sling Martha had fashioned, proudly showing his son the land that would someday be his. Spring brought new growth to both the ranch and the family. Helena found motherhood both more challenging and more rewarding than she'd anticipated. Sleepless nights were balanced by the joy of Thomas's first smile, his growing awareness, his clear love for both his parents. "He has your eyes," Adam observed one evening as they sat together on a blanket under the oak trees, watching the sunset while Thomas practiced rolling over beside them. "And your determination," Helena replied with a laugh as the baby struggled mightily to reach a colorful ball just beyond his grasp. Adam reached over to help, rolling the ball closer. "He's going to be running before we know it. Don't wish it away too quickly." Helena leaned against her husband's shoulder. "These days are precious. We'll have more," Adam said casually. "Brothers and sisters for Thomas. A houseful if you're willing." Helena smiled, a secret tucked inside. "Well, as to that," she said, taking his hand and placing it on her stomach in what had become their private signal, "we may have started on the next one already." Adam's expression of stunned delight was everything she'd hoped for. "Already? Are you sure?" "Not entirely," she admitted. "It's early days yet, but I recognize the signs." He gathered her close, careful not to disturb Thomas, who had finally reached his ball and was contentedly gumming it. "I love you, Helena Sutton, more every day if that's possible." "I love you too." She kissed him softly. "Thank you for believing in me, in us, when most would have run the other direction. Best decision I ever made." His smile turned mischievous. "Besides, I told you third times when it finally works." Helena's second pregnancy was confirmed by early summer. Thomas was crawling by then, keeping both parents busy chasing after him across the ranch house floors. Helena's millinery business continued to thrive, though she was more selective about the commissions she accepted, prioritizing family time over business expansion. Their daughter, Sarah Elizabeth Sutton, arrived in January 1882, a delicate counterpoint to her boisterous brother. With her fair hair and her father's blue eyes, she quickly became the darling of the ranch hands, who competed for the privilege of holding her while Helena worked on her hats. Life at the Double S settled into a joyful rhythm of seasons, children, and love that deepened with each passing year. Helena's past gradually faded in importance, both to her and to the community. She was no longer defined as the twice-widowed woman from Boston, but as Mrs. Sutton, Adam's capable wife, mother to their growing brood, and one of the most respected women in the county. By 1884, a third child had joined their family, another boy they named William Robert, after Adam's father and brother who had been lost in the war. The Double S prospered under their joint management, expanding its operations to include horse breeding alongside the cattle business. Helena never forgot her previous husbands or the lessons their marriages had taught her, but those relationships took their proper place in her heart as chapters in a story that had led her, ultimately, to where she belonged. On their 5th wedding anniversary, Adam surprised Helena with a journey back east, partly business, as he wanted to purchase new breeding stock, but mostly pleasure. They left the children in Martha's capable hands and traveled first to San Antonio, then by train to New Orleans, Philadelphia, and finally Boston. "Are you sure about this last stop?" Adam asked as their train approached the city. "We don't have to go to Boston." Helena squeezed his hand. "I'm sure. There are ghosts I need to face." In Boston, they visited Thomas Thornton's grave, where Helena laid flowers and silently thanked her first husband for the brief happiness they'd shared. To her surprise, they also encountered Thomas's mother, now elderly and much softened by time. "Helena," Mrs. Thornton said, clearly shocked to find her former daughter-in-law at her son's grave. "It's been many years." "Yes, it has." Helena introduced Adam, explaining they were visiting from Texas. The older woman studied Helena's face. "You look well, happy." "I am, very much so." Mrs. Thornton hesitated, then said quietly, "I owe you an apology. Grief made me cruel, made me look for someone to blame. I know now Thomas's death was simply a terrible accident." Helena felt a weight she hadn't realized she still carried lift from her shoulders. "Thank you for saying that. It means more than you know." They parted with a fragile peace established, and Helena felt a sense of closure as they left the cemetery. "Feel better?" Adam asked, tucking her hand into the crook of his arm as they walked back to their hotel. "Much," she smiled up at him. "The past doesn't have the power to hurt me anymore. Not when my present and future are so beautiful." Their journey continued to Philadelphia, where they visited James Gardner's children, who welcomed Helena warmly. James's son David had taken over his father's business and expanded it successfully. He showed Adam and Helena around the city, genuinely pleased to see how happy Helena was in her new life. "Father would be glad," he told her as they said their goodbyes. "He only ever wanted your happiness." By the time they returned to Texas and the double S, Helena felt a circle had been completed. The ghosts of her past had been laid to rest, leaving her free to embrace her future fully. Life continued to unfold in beautiful ways. The children grew, the ranch prospered, and Helena and Adam's love deepened with each passing season. There were challenges, of course, droughts, economic downturns, childhood illnesses, the ordinary struggles of any life, but they faced them together, stronger as a team than they ever could have been alone. In 1889, as they celebrated their 10th wedding anniversary with a grand party at the ranch, Helena found a moment of quiet with Adam on their favorite hill, overlooking the property that had grown and changed with their family. "Any regrets?" Adam asked, his arm around her waist as they watched the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Helena considered the question seriously, thinking of all the twists and turns that had brought her to this moment, the heartbreak, the scandal, the courage it had taken to start over in a strange place. "Not one," she said finally, turning to face the man who had seen past her history to the woman she truly was. "Every step, even the painful ones, led me here. To you, to our children, to this life we've built together." Adam smiled, the lines around his eyes now as much from laughter as from squinting in the Texas sun. "Third time really was the charm, wasn't it?" Helena rose on her toes to kiss him, pouring 10 years of gratitude and love into the gesture. "The best charm of all," she agreed. As they walked hand in hand back down the hill toward their home, where their children waited and their future continued to unfold, Helena knew with absolute certainty that she had finally found what she'd been searching for all along, not just love, but a love worth keeping, worth fighting for, worth building a life around. The past would always be part of her story, but it was Adam's steadfast, loving Adam who had helped her write the chapters that mattered most. And as the stars began to appear in the darkening Texas sky, Helena Sutton looked forward to all the pages yet to come.